right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy and excited to see everyone back. Welcome back to AI Security. My name is Chris Risher. I lead our advisory services here at RedHelm, as well as our digital innovation practice. I'll be moderating again today. Last month and built on the fundamentals, we laid out a layered approach to AI risk, the security basics, the OWASP top 10 for LLM applications and the controls that sit on top. Today we do something different. We're going to go live and do some demos around AI security controls. We're going to walk through a day in the life of a breach, kind of the AI version, if you will, across three real scenarios and show you in real time how they play out. If you missed last month, no problem. You're in the right place. I'll go ahead and post the YouTube video from last month for those that are interested in catching up. It's definitely on our YouTube's page, and we post all these webinars afterwards. About 24 hours later, we're posting them to our YouTube site. Before I introduce everybody, I want to just do a couple of quick housekeeping items. We will do formal Q&A at the end of the session, but feel free to ask questions as we go. We will do our best to respond in real time. We do have a couple of polls. We'd love to get some insight from you on those. With no further ado, I do want to introduce my panelist mates. Very excited and blessed to be joined by Corey again, our VP of Security Solutions. And also we got a new guest from one of our partners, Palo Alto Networks, Tally. He's going to be the one that steps us through a lot of the demos with the lab that he's set up. Thanks, Tally, for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us. So I want to just transition almost like immediately into our first poll. But if I just set the context while we put that poll out, here's the reality. Shadow AI is already in most organizations. Most AI incidents don't start with a hacker. They start with something ordinary, a paste, a question typed into a chatbot, a developer moving fast. Policy without enforcement is theater. And we'll dive into that statement a little bit more later in the discussion. So today, let's not just talk about it. Let's see Tally actually flesh it out in real time and watch it. We'll do what a good tabletop does. Ask, okay, this has just happened. Now what? So we're going to really ask Corey after some of these things happen, what are we going to do after that? What does forensics look like? Before we do that, like I said, if you could give us some answers into the poll, you're definitely gonna. If you were here last time, it looks familiar. We did that on purpose. We'd like to maybe compare some of our results from our last poll to this one. So I'll give everyone another let's say 30 seconds to answer. We've got about two-thirds of everyone has answered already, so appreciate that. If we could, get everyone to answer, that'd be great. If not, no big deal, and we'll move on. Yeah. Right. Let's end the poll. Let's share the results. So this is really actually consistent with our poll results from last time we met in May. We definitely have kind of mixed results. Any initial feedback from what you see there, Corey?
This is, like you said, lines right up from everything else that we've been seeing, both with all the customers that we've been talking to and what we've been seeing in general across the board.
Okay. All right. So um,
I should note, Chris, that last one is probably the scariest, the unsure. I'm just
yeah.
saying. I know we're going to talk about it, but I got to say it now. Unsure is scary.
Yeah, and we'll talk about what visibility looks like here. That's a good segue actually into our next slide. Corey, let's actually for those that missed last month, or I say last month, it was the end of May. We've kind of moved into July. Obviously, this year is like flying by in front of me. For anyone who missed last month, 60-second version, what does AI security have to be built? Why does AI security have to be built on the fundamentals?
Yeah. So fundamentals are what really, oh, 60 seconds, Chris. What a challenge. It's built
I
on
gotta we
the,
gotta work on our elevator pitch, and here it
I
is,
know,
Corey. Gotta
I
work on your
know,
elevator
I know,
pitch.
I know. So it's built on the fundamentals because the fundamentals still apply. Like, for example, IAM. AI is using a user account at the end of the day, whether that's an AI specified user account, whether it's a user, like a real human user account, whether it's a service account, whatever, still using a user account, IAM still applies. It's still happening on a device that could probably be controlled, whether that's a device controlled by EDR, whether it's controlled by microsegmentation. AI is still creating logs. There's still going to be a volume of information that's going to hit the SEM. So like those fundamentals aren't changing. The firewall is still going to have traffic in and out of it. That all pertains to AI. So like if you don't have that fundamental like foundational blocks is we're literally visualizing there, then you're going to be blind to all of that before you can even get to what I'm going to call the AI problem
Yeah.
to solve. So that's why.
I think in advisory, we always give the analogy of especially agentic AI. It's really another persona within the organization, just happens to be a supercharged one. So
Absolutely.
insider risk would say it's just another person, but that person can lift, you know, tons upon tons, whereas a regular human can only do so much at the same time. So
Yep.
I appreciate that, Corey. One additional, well, I got two additional questions. Uh, I mentioned earlier policy without enforcement is theater. So policy without technical controls to enforce that policy is theater. What does that mean? Like, if you had to bubble that up to leadership, what would you say to them? So they've
Uh,
already put an AI policy in place.
mhm.
What would you say to them around policy without enforcement is theater?
Uh, Policy is only as good as what you can enforce and what you have visibility into. So if you have none of those things, are you even going to be able to enforce the thing that you just put into place? Now, I don't say that that sounds extreme. It does. You should absolutely have that policy in place. I fully wholeheartedly agree with that because you may uncover activity through your EDR, through your SEM, through whatever. You're still going to uncover some activity somewhere, and that policy is going to be very valuable for that. But having a policy without visibility and without an ability to enforce against it, it's just kind of empty.
Appreciate that. Last one, shadow AI. Realistically, how confident should most organizations be that they even know how their people are using AI?
I think 25 people respond, or 25 people, 25% of people responded roughly in that first poll of unsure. That's generally what we're seeing across the board is unsure. Because at the end of the day, I feel like we're getting back into like the zero trust conversation. Like every piece of that fundamental stack, every brick in that stack, EDR, SIM, IAM, microsegmentation, where did it all begin? We don't have visibility. And
Mhm.
microsegmentation is a really easy example of this, where we had firewalls. We can see northwest traffic, but how are our internal machines interacting? We don't have visibility into that. That's why microsegmentation was born. So, same exact scenario is playing out just in this space, right? There's a lack of visibility into the way that some of these things are being used. Again, you're still going to have some visibility. It's way better than what it was with like microsegmentation, where there's nothing. Before EDRs, there was nothing. Now we have some stuff in place that we actually absolutely can do, and then we're just building upon that to gain additional visibility into how people are interacting with AI more specifically.
Good. That's good. So enough talking. Let's actually switch to our first use case, and I'll hand over the reins here in just a moment to Tally. This one, it should be familiar for those that did get to watch in May. We wanted to make sure we connected with one of the use cases in May, and we're actually going to play this out live. Effectively, Jamie pastes a column of customer records, including credit cards, into a public AI chatbot. Let's see what happens next. No further ado, Tal, you mind taking over, and then we'll come back to this slide to kind of say what we're going to do, and then do it, and then show everyone what we did, and then we'll talk about what happens afterwards with Corey.
Absolutely. So, what we're going to do first, and I guess let me introduce myself. My name is Tally Szakel, as Chris had. announced in the beginning, I am with Palo Alto Networks as a security consultant. And my whole goal today is just to enable you guys and show how it is that we are able to secure the AI workflow. I'm going to show you a path of what security looks like whenever there's no enforcements in place. Then we're going to look and see what it looks like to secure your AI applications whenever there are enforcements in place. So let's go on ahead and take that first path and see what is actually going on whenever there is no security as companies are starting to adopt the introduction of AI within their workplace. So first thing that you're going to see here is a standard browser that most of you guys are familiar with. This is logged into ChatGPT. Imagine that this is any other online AI application, and most people are utilizing it today to help with their productivity and day-to-day workflows. On this separate screen that I'm going to share with you is a Dropbox. And let's say that this is some sort of centralized repository. Maybe it's OneDrive for you guys, maybe it's Google Drive. The premise still holds in that this is an area where your employees are able to go in and get whichever information it is that is crucial to them. Let's say that we're in a scenario where I want to go on ahead and help with the workflow. I'm pulling in a whole bunch of information, such as credit card numbers and other sensitive assets that I want to make sure that these agents aren't able to go on ahead and utilize for their training purposes, or even just to make sure that the security that we want to put in place for the assets that we want to secure are staying in house. So ahead of time, I went on ahead and downloaded this document as if I wanted to go on ahead and use it. But let's see what actually happens if I were to take this number and put it into a standard enterprise browser, or not enterprise browser, a standard browser that has no security enforcements in place. So I'm going to go on ahead and copy and paste this number. And then whenever I go on ahead and share my screen to the first browser that I showed you guys, this is roughly what things are going to look like whenever we go on ahead and put the data in place. So standard as normal, there is no security at hand. So whenever I go on ahead and try to do any sort of analysis on it, I can go on ahead and upload the number as usual. Now, this is not something that we want to have happen at best in the security place where we're looking at the logs within our firewalls. We would be able to see that we went to ChatGPT and we're interacting with it as a user, but that's about as far as we can see with the standard browser. But let's go on ahead and flip the script and see what happens whenever we go into an enterprise browser where there's more features and guardrails that we can put in place about how our employees actually interact with these chatbots. I'm going to go on ahead and pull up this secondary browser that we were first on. And this next one that I'm on is the enterprise browser that does have the guardrails. One way that you can identify that is we are flagging some of the applications that we're on as business. And you'll see up here, we're back into ChatGPT. Based on the policies that were put in place as an organization, we're going to deem that ChatGPT is an unsanctioned application. So if I take that same credit card number and then put it in here, you'll notice I get a pop-up that is telling me that I am not allowed to put in sensitive data. So that way we are actually putting in guardrails in place. So that way the things that we want to keep internal are being kept internal. And what does that actually look like whenever you want to go in on the back end and see what is going on to make sure that you are able to start putting in the proper policies in place, maybe taking away certain privileges from individual users, or giving them additional courses on how they can interact with AI in a safe way. Well, this is what it looks like, and I will show you kind of what the logs and insights that you get show. Okay. So this dashboard right here is the insights that you're going to get whenever you are looking into some of the interactions that your users may be having with their chatbots on websites and things of that nature. So I'm going to go on ahead and kind of filter within this last hour. And you'll see immediately right here that it noticed that I was attached to the enterprise domain with EverEast. And I tried to go on ahead and take some information that was sensitive and pasted it into ChatGPT. And then we can see what sort of information is actually being brought up. And it's tagging it such as credit cards, and it could also identify social security numbers or any other sensitive piece of assets if you guys have code repositories and things like that that you want to keep secure.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Tally. So that was our first example, and I'm gonna reshare my screen so we can keep on going through the slides. Before we move on to the next one, in the first scenario, obviously we're stepping through someone that's already pasted a credit card number, and we don't have controls in place. How do you see the next steps playing out, Corey? Like, we're probably going on a forensics pathway. How do you see the next steps playing out?
Yep. So a couple places. Number one, you're probably not going to have much visibility that happened without an enterprise browser in place, right? Let's be honest. Let's say some way, some shape, some forum, you get an alert or somebody, like maybe the user tells on themselves and says, hey, look what I just did. I just put this in there and look at the magic it created. Okay. Then yes, you're absolutely correct. There would be forensics. And forensics, just so we're all clear whenever we say that, we would be taking that end user's machine that they just did that action on, taking it offline to that user, running a forensics image of it, pulling all of the data, processing the data, and then doing a deep dive investigation for it. Because that is really the only way that we're going to get full scope and full details of everything that they put into the browser. Because a lot of times, and the reason you would go that route, as opposed to just like, what all did you put in here? Like, oh no, this is really bad, is because we need evidence. And then we need to find out if this is a material breach, and we have to talk to legal, and we have to start going down that route to figure out what data was implemented in there. Then you have to look at different questions like, is this a enterprise ChatGPT account, or did they use their personal ChatGPT account? Because those are two different things. ChatGPT uses those. It holds the data and treats it differently. If it's a personal account, it's publicly trainable. That might mean they just uploaded thousands of credit cards into a publicly trainable model. That could be a material breach. There's so much to that yes, you hit the nail on the head. We'd then have to perform forensics on, present that as a report. We'd have to involve legal, potentially a breach coach, and then there would be a damage assessment after that.
Gotcha. And so I'm a business person first and foremost, honestly. So the idea of putting controls in place and it potentially grinding my business to a halt is anxiety inducing, I would say.
Yeah.
So how do we put these controls in without literally grinding the business to a halt? People paste legit things uh, for legit reasons as well.
Yep. So it starts with visibility into how your users are interacting with AI, right? As Tally just showed, you're going to have visibility into how the users are interacting with AI if you have the enterprise browser. So it starts with visibility. Then you can start with the wide sweeping rules. People generally shouldn't, no matter what, be putting social security numbers in there, credit card information, any PII, any PHI, that generally shouldn't be going into there, right? There are exceptions to the rule. By the way, there's exceptions to the rule. PHI is probably the closest to an exception to the rule. But my point is generally there's going to be wide sweeping controls that you can put into place that are going to be generally successful very rapidly. Then you would be digging in from there. The more you start to dig in, the more potential disruption there is, but you always want to start visibility first to understand what could have been blocked versus starting from let's block everything and then open it up because you're going to be disrupting everyone and every activity and then slowly opening it up to what they should be doing versus like, let's start with visibility and let's walk towards the end state goal of enforcement as deep as we can go.
Gotcha. Tally, we still maybe have a chance at visibility to the former scenario. So, like, basically, that person, Jamie, I called her Jamie, pasted the credit card number into a browser that's not an enterprise browser. What are our additional layers that we might have in place from a, like, let's say, a DLP perspective, to have to catch um, that that particular problem?
Well, one of the things that you can do just baseline with an existing firewall that may already be in someone's environment is making sure that the proper decryption is in place. So that way, if assets are being taken out from maybe say a HQ, then you can make sure that before it even leaves your HQ that you're blocking it from there. But if at some point it does get on the end user's device and they are able to put it onto the browser, you wouldn't necessarily be able to stop it in place because they already have that asset there. But you would have some insight to see, hey, they have put this information into the chat bot, it's been flagged, and we need to now go in and take that information off or take it into an account the actions that were taken so that way there are proper guardrails moving forward so an incident like this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, so we can get visibility and at least we can take action in the future. Obviously, there will be an artifact left behind for forensics to come back and see what happened and let's get better in the future. Um, Anything to add there, Corey?
No, that hits the nail on the head with the exception of the last part, which is training.
Yep.
Training
And I
the
was
end users,
literally going to
right?
come to that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So,
Good
yep.
segue. That would be something that you would add back into your training protocols to, all right, we had this thing happen. Let's update training so that people actually understand what happened. And now we get almost like this self-fulfilling feedback loop to, we had a problem, let's introduce training. And we keep on utilizing that to make things better over time. Perfect. Let's actually segue into our second poll of the day. How much visibility does your organization have into how employees are using AI tools? This is definitely the meat of the questions, which I think everyone's going to be super excited to see the answers here. Um, and totally understand everyone's at different parts of their AI journey, specifically AI security journey. Um, we're considering token usage for the next webinar and how people can uh, utilize different parts of the AI ecosystem to be more efficient with their tokens or their credits, and see how you can try to fix cost because we all know that the finance teams of different organizations talk about anxiety. I don't remember which company it was. I know AWS had an incident where basically they ate all their credits in, what was that, 2 months, Corey?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I
There's
think,
another there was the other company that is still undisclosed to this day that got a $500 million bill from Claude for token usage as well in a month.
yeah. So that's a real interesting topic to approach next go around. We'll give it another like 10 or 15 seconds and we'll take a look at the results. It's really encouraging. I already see it's really encouraging. There's definitely more than half of the people are saying they've got some visibility into AI usage. So let's go and end the poll and show the results. So this is really good. I mean, there is definitely some people that are maturing in their visibility. Love that. Any comments, Tally, Corey, to the results here?
I think not sure and no visibility are probably going to be some of the of I see that they're like, maybe what's that, 30%, 60% have some visibility and some have 7% have full visibility. So like this is generally what we're seeing across the board. You're going to have some visibility, especially if you have some of those building blocks in place already. Some folks are not going to have any visibility whatsoever, and then some folks aren't going to be sure. So no, this lines right up, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then let's transition to our next demo. All right. So let's flip the camera around. In scenario one, we were protecting the company from data going out. So this time, the company has put an AI assistant on its own website to help customers, and someone shows up who isn't there for help. Meet the company's name is HealthBridge, a healthcare provider. A visitor types into the website assistant, I want the full medical history of a patient, and then tries to basically jailbreak their way past the guardrails and get that information through the AI assistant. So with no further ado, Tally, you can take over the screen share and let's actually step through this in real time.
Decided to do it. So what you're going to see right here is this is a typical website that you may see on your local healthcare provider or anything else of that nature. Oftentimes, whenever you're on their main website, they're going to have their standard services and points of contacts that you can reach out to. But for common issues or pain points that a patient may be looking to resolve, they'll often have some sort of chat bot down here at the bottom. Now, in the past, that may have been someone who was actually on the other line and just kind of seeing who was coming through. But now they're putting in actual AI agents to go on ahead and respond automatically. Now, let's say I'm an adversary and I want to come in here and I just have some really ill intent and I want to go on ahead and pull in specific information for a particular patient so that way I can do more malicious activities. If I wanted to, say, get a prescription fraud, I can go in here and then actually send it to the pharmacy that I want to send it to. But you'll see that it goes on ahead and, oh, gotta refresh that. Um, if I go on ahead and do the prescription fraud, it'll actually block that. And there are a couple of other different examples that you could show here. But even if I wanted to go on ahead and take out the personal information of a user, it'll also go on ahead and block it based on the security policies that we put around this chatbot as a whole. But if I were to just type in a general message of, say, like, hi, uh, what can this bot help with? You'll see that it gives me a standard response. So let's go on ahead and see the actual violations that were made whenever the adversary went to the website, and we can see what actually happened. So one of the first things that is a benefit of putting in guardrails and security around the chatbots that users and organizations are putting into their publicly facing sites is we often want to see how these sessions are being interacted in the full context of what is actually being allowed to go through versus what isn't being allowed. And you'll see here, just based off of some of the prompts, these are the transaction details of what was actually allowed to go through. You can see that this was a perfectly safe prompt that I put in. You can even see the response that the bot had gave me, so that way we can understand how it's responding to us, as well as the separate pieces of context that the bot is using. But let's go back to the more present case where we tried to go on ahead and pull out information or reroute a prescription for our own use. You can still see the same interactions. You can see what exactly was put through. So that way, if there was a prompt that say we didn't intend to go through and we wanted to go on ahead and put in proper guardrails and trainings for the future, now we have an educated piece of evidence or an asset, so that way we can train it accordingly. But in this case, it did block it based on the profile that we put in place in which it was prompt injection. Now, one of the questions that may come up is why we're seeing some of these additional pieces of insight with this runtime component compared to what it is that we were able to see in the previous example with the general chat bot with, say, like ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, or even Gemini. And the biggest difference is that this is something that you're hosting. So this is a way for us to scan it as the prompt is being accepted in real time. But since those other frontier models are often hosted by Google, Anthropic, and OpenAI, we don't have access to those models' code. And that's why we can't necessarily see and always enforce it in the way that we would want to.
Gotcha. Um, One clarifying question, and I think he sort of started touching on it at the end. What does it not show? Like, what are we currently blind to? I think is the question there, Tally. And feel free to jump in there, Corey. Um, that maybe something that we're still working towards within from a product set standpoint. Is there
I
anything?
I think Tally just hit the nail on the head. Sorry, Tally. Tally just hit the nail on the head, which is frontier models. There's almost no capability to gather it on, like, there's no enforcement. Like, I'll call it AI firewalling with frontier models, if you will. That's very challenging. And that's something that I think we all hope they open up either APIs to someone like Palo Alto, or you know, that we could integrate these in so that at runtime, that same capability that Tally just showed is available for any model, not just the ones you build and host yourself.
Yeah, and I think that that's a one key comment there that I say to clients often is security is not a destination.
Yep.
It will always forever be a journey. And shoring up the foundations as much as we possibly can to I once had this meeting I did with a board where I had planned on actually bringing Swiss cheese with me. And the idea of that is that there are holes in every single one of the layers, and the more we can keep those holes from not being lined up, the better chance we have of blocking anything. We heard about the Swiss cheese model because it's not really a security model. It's a risk aversion, risk management model that is academic, but we apply it to security because we want to layer things in place and put as many layers as we can, knowing that there will be new risks that show up every single day. And I think that was that's a really good call out. There are things we don't see here yet. In the future, hopefully, we will come up with a new slice of Swiss cheese that'll cover up those holes. Corey, this just happened. So let's just say a patient did put, or a patient's information did get out of our chat bot. What
Yep.
do you see happening after that?
So forensics would be, again, reenacted, but this time, instead of being an end user's box, whatever box is hosting AI, that internal AI bot is where we'd have to do forensics. That
Gotcha.
could be very disruptive to the business. You may potentially have to disable that chatbot for multiple reasons to both contain this threat, because if a threat actor figures out I can get one piece of information, they've realized they can get any piece of information or a whole bunch of pieces of information, right? They might get one user's and then realize, well, I can ask that same prompt over and over and over and over and over again to get all the data that I want, which is all of your users. So there's going to be containment, which is a disruption to the business. There's going to be forensics. What did they prompt your AI model for to get that data? Why was that data shared? And then there would have to be some level of solution put into place if there isn't one already, for guardrails. So that could be again back to what Tally showed, which is errors, but you would have to put something in place that can absolutely put those guardrails in place on that AI model. So there would be forensics, which again could be very disruptive because we're taking an image of your AI machine, which could be more than just a chatbot, to be honest, because it could have access to internal documentation and be used in multiple ways, depending on how people set it up. And then there's also going to be containment. So we may want to shut it down for a while, a period in time while we find the right solution if it doesn't exist or it's not already in place. And then we want to enhance that and put those rules in place. Then we'd want to test them before we'd release it out of containment. And then there would be the forensics analysis. Is this a breach? And then the whole risk methodology and approach that we already discussed for the previous first part that I'll just skip over instead of reiterating.
Gotcha. I think so. We have a question in the chat that I kind of like is around this scenario. AI assistants aren't necessarily agents, but they're backed by agents. Um, the question is specifically to RedHelm, even though, in this we're really trying to be very generic and just give general guidance. But I think it's a really interesting question, Corey, for you to take a look at. Heather asked, what support will RedHelm offer for custom agentic development slash review? And I think, if I understand that, I don't think that Heather is asking for help from a digital innovation like lens, like helping them actually develop the agents, which we can do. She's looking for cybersecurity elements of multi-agent structures and workflows that may be API integrated in CRM. So if I understand that correctly, trying to understand how, like, when information is being pulled from different elements within those agents. Did I understand
Well,
that correctly, Heather?
we're gonna make an
Okay.
assumption. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Um, so that is going to be a big old depends, my favorite word in the entire universe. There is a lot of factors to that. The short answer is, will there be support? Yes, there's going to be some sort of support. But the ultimate answer is, where does the agent reside? Because that's going to dictate how much access we have to it and what we can do. And then what APIs and what applications are going to be the targets. Because I'm going to pick on Palo since they're here. They do have a library of integrations for SaaS apps that they absolutely have visibility into. So if it's on that list, then yeah, we're going to have visibility into it. If the agent is in-house, yes, we're going to have visibility to it. So the short answer is yes. The long answer, though, is maybe not in every circumstance for every app or for every place that agentic AI might be.
And just to add to that, if we think about our foundational items, and we're talking about a CRM, so it's going to be they're going to be a bunch of APIs, and if we're already pulling the logs for usage for your instance of, let's just throw HubSpot out there. I'm just going to say HubSpot because we use HubSpot. But if we're pulling logs from the usage within the organization into the SIM, there's already some level of visibility inside the foundational elements of security.
Correct.
So again, back to Corey's statements earlier about, hey, make sure your foundational pieces and parts are in place. If you got some foundational things around SIM and you're pulling those logs, that might be some of the guidance we'd offer is, all right, you're going to start pulling data from these individual line of business applications into an agent. Are we putting those logs into the SIM? So yeah,
Yep.
totally get it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
100%.
I think everyone can see Heather's dialogue with us.
Yeah.
So
It says
really
to
appreciate
everyone,
the
so I think
interaction,
so.
Heather.
Yeah.
All right, so let's transition, I think, to our last item. If I can find where the share button is here. Got all these things all over the place now.
And while Chris is doing that, we do have another question in the chat. We're not ignoring you. We're going to come back to that during Q&A.
Yeah.
So I did want to point that out.
All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so our last one for today, We're gonna switch gears a little bit. Hopefully won't get too in the weeds about being a developer, but we did want to take a kind of a product approach for those that are product strategy focused. If we have companies that have developers and they're developing products, whether that's products that are client facing or internally facing, revenue generating versus cost reduction. Our third character is the power user. Um, and there are a lot of team members on this call that could be considered to be those types of people. A developer who knows how to get around the guardrails, spins up a remote desktop, wires an AI coding assistant to a stack of tools, and pulls a local model off a public repo like Hugging Face to just quote unquote test something. Productive? Probably, maybe even absolutely. Governed? Ooh, that's the major question here. Let's look at what the organization can and can't see. Tally, go ahead and take
One
over.
definitely hits home for me because before taking on this job with Palo, I did a lot of development in my own time, and I still do in my free time just for personal projects and things of that nature. So let's go on ahead and actually show kind of the ways that we're able to start to shift that security left towards the initial development phase and see how developers are utilizing AI workflows and tools within their local environments. What you're currently seeing right now is one of the newer acquisitions that we've taken up, and their primary focus is being able to help us understand from a visibility and protection side around the different extensions, tools, and separate add-ons that developers and even your everyday user may be bringing into the environment. One of these is where I took one of my virtual machines and I was working on a project fairly recently, and I've been playing around with Fable 5. And one of the things that we're able to see into from just a general insight perspective on how my machine was interacting with Claude Code is the different types of tool use, whether it be pre-tool use or post-tool use. And then we can even go as far to see as the different types of decisions that I was giving it. In this case, since this was in a safe environment and I wanted to make sure that I could get full visibility and just understanding of like how this product works. I just did a general allow, but we can even see the level in which I had set the model to be at. In this case, I'm trying to get the most use out of Fable 5 before they take it off the shelf come this upcoming Sunday. So I put it to a medium level. But you can even get down to if certain tools were interrupted. In this case, there were different guardrails in place where Claude was trying to delete and remove files from my endpoint, but we decided to put in guardrails so that way that isn't allowed. And you can even see where these actual tools are being executed at. From a model perspective and even MCP servers, as developers are starting to bring these in, you can see the severity levels and how risky different local models may be as they're bringing it into the environment. So if we wanted to see something of a higher level that maybe they pulled from a public repository like Hugging Face, we can get different findings in terms of exactly if we have any governance around it, the exact order of operations that it took to get that model from the publisher all the way to our endpoint, various different details on when it was published, downloads, as well as the risk findings that we found with it. And one of the concerning ones with this one is whoever published this specific model, they seem to be an unverified publisher. And if that's one thing that you want to put in guardrails around, just to make sure that developers are actually pulling in trusted and tested models that have gone through rigorous testing, even though it is open source and on the internet, then you can go on ahead and do so. But let's say you guys have a separate method of bringing in models and you guys are doing development and you just want to get an idea and a little bit more insight into actually what the risks are with separate models, we can actually go on ahead and do that. So on this separate screen is one of the ways that we're able to do slightly more investigation and forensics into the separate assets that you're bringing into your environment. And we have two examples here, one of which is a trusted open source model, FLAN T5 small. And if we go on ahead and do a general scan on that, you'll see that it's going to go on ahead and pass all the guardrails and rules that we have in place. If we want to come in and see some of the information around why it was passed, you can see exactly what checks it's passing, in this case, various licenses, how it's storing files, and load time executions and things of that nature. But if we go on the flip side and try to get a little bit more insight into maybe a new model that your developers are trying to test out with, maybe it's DeepSeek, and it's a new model that hasn't been tested to its fullest extent yet, we can do a scan on that. But in this case, it's a model called Sentiment Check. And you're going to see that it's only passing about four of the policies that we have in place. And ultimately, this is not something that we want to keep within our environment. If we go back to this scan and see the logs in detail, you'll be able to see exactly why it is that they failed, and the separate remediations that you can take in order to make sure that we are putting the proper security guardrails in place.
Appreciate that, Tally. All right, Corey, I'm not going to make you say forensics again. But back to my comments earlier about, I'm a business person first. Love the security thing, but I'm a business person first. So these builders are important to me. How do we enable them without turning security into the team that only says no?
So it's a fantastic question, and to make that so succinct in a short time period, Chris, you're really challenging me today. All right, so the way that you'd want to do that is focus in on, and this is kind of going to be the way that we're actually doing it as well. So you want to focus in on the data types. You want to focus in on what should and shouldn't be in a general stance, right? So like what data do you allow to be in AI in general? And then from there, once you've established kind of like your organization, your business's standpoint on what data do you allow in and out of AI, then it becomes a choice of what AIs do you allow and how do you want your folks to interact with them. After that, it's implementing your security controls, it's implementing your security policies, and then I don't want to use the term guardrails, but really like the gloves come off at that point in time, right? Like go use AI the way that you need to use AI. And now you're enabling your people and your business to use AI as opposed to restricting and restricting and restricting and restricting back. It is getting to the spot where you have good visibility, you're blocking the majority, and then you're kind of always continuously improving and focusing in on the deltas while continuously telling your folks to go use AI and encourage the adoption of it.
Yeah, I love that. I like the thoughts of team member empowerment through AI, because that's really, at the end of the day, that's the intent of AI, is to make us more effective, more efficient, because we all know there's not enough people to hire out there. So utilizing AI in its best scenarios are what we as business leaders want to be able to see, and augmenting our team members, not replacing them, augmenting them, especially our best team members.
Yes.
I think with that, it makes a lot of sense for us to transition into Q&A. But the one quote I just want to leave everyone with, it's the same quote as last time. If your AI acted on your behalf today, how far could it go? Just something to consider as we transition to the Q&A. So with that, we'll open up the floor and we'll answer the first questions in there. And I think it's really for you, Tally. Does the Palo Alto solution put guardrails on other sources of AI search engines?
Short answer to that is yes, based on the way I'm interpreting it. And there's two ways. One of which there's the search engine that first comes to mind, Perplexity, which is an AI focused, essentially researcher. We do have security methods where we're able to generally like block and put more finite controls on how a user interacts with Perplexity. But even if you're using Google, for example, one of the things that we've all probably noticed in the past 3 to 4 months roughly is whenever you do a basic search on Google, no longer does it just show you here's link 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It shows you an AI summary, and then it starts to
Mhm.
show you the links that are relevant to your search. If you wanted to put in guardrails with, say, the enterprise browser to where you don't want any of those AI summarizations, it'll show just the basic links, kind of like the old school Google that most of us are used to.
Appreciate that. All right. Only had a couple of questions. Anybody have anything else? Anybody out there want to ask an additional question? Otherwise, we'll wrap early. We'll give everyone another couple of minutes to. You can either put it in the Q&A. We're we're watching the Q&A, and then or you can just put it in the chat. Well, you know what? I will ask a question regarding our last example. What's the governance that lets us sanction the right tools and models before a tool becomes shadow AI? So, like, do we put content filtering in place to kind of, all right, these are not our tools. We have a usage policy. We want to go with an overall strategy of visibility over sanctioning, but where do you see the balance, Corey?
Balance of governance versus visibility. Did I understand
Correct.
that correctly?
Yep.
I mean, in my stance, visibility all day. That's going to be the key component, in my opinion. Governance is fantastic. Do not get me wrong. I always kind of poo-poo on governance a little bit. It is necessary. It is something that has to be in place, and we need it. But visibility can drive governance. Visibility can drive enforcement. Visibility can drive the unknown. Visibility can uncover shadow AI. But governance cannot do those things, right? Governance can say, now that you've done it and I've discovered it in one way or another, which is kind of ambiguous, now I can enforce this repercussion or, whatever. Versus I have visibility. Now I know how people are using AI. It's not a question of, are you using AI? How are you using? I can see you're using AI and I can see you're using it for this data set. Your users might be doing everything you expect them to. Or you might find out you have a really bad situation on your hand. Like, why'd you put that data in there? Why'd you put that data in there? So I would say at the end of the day, visibility is always going to be the key component to all of this because without it, it's hard to enforce governance. And without it, it's hard to evolve governance.
And you can't govern honestly what you can't see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've gone through a few scenarios today. Happy to interact with everyone individually. Please reach out to us. We're happy to have discussions. AI security is still a layer on top of the fundamentals. I want to make sure we wrap back to the beginning. Without the fundamentals in place, it is hard to get visibility. It is hard to do forensics after an issue occurs. Um, if you'd like to know where your organization stands, a foundational assessment, AI risk analysis, those types of things, we're happy to help and we'd love to help anyone we can. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. Hope to see everyone on our next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks.